Hi, everyone. Getting started a little late this morning. Sorry about that, but I just want to share with you a few thoughts uh, very quickly today on the book of Mark. We are in the ninth part of our sermon series on the book of Mark. So this year, we are just going through the book of Mark. I don't know if it'll take us the whole year. It'll probably be a good portion of it. And the reason why we're doing that is we just think there's a lot of things going on, and we want to get to the real, actual, raw Jesus, and that's what the book of Mark is. So this morning, I want to first give you my points, and then for those of you to get off early, then you'll at least have those. I'm having a problem with my screen here. This is not good. Why is this going on? It was all set up. There it is. So let me just read to you this short scripture here. It says, and I want to just talk about the one who controls the storm today. Mark 35 through 41. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were there with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion, and they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" The 4 points that I'm going to have today is that his power is real. His power has no end. His power is not controlled. His power is costly. And so the first part, his power is real. So just a couple thoughts here. When we see Jesus getting into the boat, Mark mentions some details. He mentions that there were other boats there. He mentions that that he didn't go into the shore. He just climbed into another boat. These are these like minor details that are going on. What's significant about this is that in ancient writings, when someone wrote a legend or a fictional story, they didn't include details like this. Today, if you read a fictional story, you're going to get all these details. He wore a blue shirt. He had short hair. That's how they write today, but that's not how they wrote in ancient times. So when Mark puts these details in, what he's saying is this is someone's memory. This is what someone remembered. They remembered the boats there. They remembered that he didn't get off the boat, but he went into another boat. They went into the sea. And then in the Sea of Galilee, there's these big mountains surrounding the Sea of Galilee, and the wind comes down, and these squalls come, and these big storms can come out of nowhere. Now, these were fishermen, and they were used to these storms, but this one must have been really, really bad. And we know another detail Mark puts is that Jesus was asleep, but he says he was asleep on a cushion. Again, this is speaking to something that's real, something that's tangible, something that happened. These guys were really in a boat with him. They were really afraid. Very experienced fishermen on the Sea of Galilee were afraid of this water. They were afraid of this storm because they probably had never seen anything like this before. This was probably one of the worst storms they had ever seen. And there they were really afraid. So I just want to, when Jesus calms this storm, he completely calms it, right? And this is real power. This is a real, the way this reads is this was a real situation that happened. This is not a legend. This is not a story. Mark shares this as if this is real, that this is someone's actual memory. And remember, Mark is the earliest gospel. So when he wrote this, people were still alive that would have been able to verify this. or not verify it. And no one ever came out and said this is wrong, that this was actually verified by people that were alive at the time that saw Jesus. And we know Mark was a disciple of Peter. So this probably comes right from Peter. And this whole description probably comes from him. So the second thing, I want you to say, first of all, his power is real. His power has no end. His power is infinite. In Cape May, the surfers want to surf before or after the storm because the waves are really big. Recently in Cape May, last fall, there was a really big storm out to sea, and all the surfers were talking about the waves because here in Cape May, we don't get great waves that much. I'm not a surfer. My son is. But I'm told that like our waves are okay, but there's a lot of people that like to surf around here. But there was this great opportunity when the waves were really high because there was a storm out to sea. Jesus, and I want you to picture this. They're in the boat. The storm's coming in. The water's coming in. They're trying to gush out the water. They're getting buckets or whatever they can find, trying to get the water out of the boat. They're going to die. This is what they are certain is going to happen. This is a bad, bad storm. Jesus got up and says, "Be still." He gets up and rebukes the storm, tells it to be still. Now, I want you to catch this. I want you to catch the power of this. In ancient times, it was believed that the sea was something that was untamable. You could not tame the sea, and so they would look at anyone who could calm the sea as God. Only God could calm the sea. And when Jesus said, "Peace, be still," the wind didn't just stop. Like if he said, "Peace, be still," and the wind and the rain stopped, what would have happened is the sea would have still been moving. That's what happens in Cape May, right? That's what happens in the ocean. When the storm stops, the waves keep going for a couple of days, right? Because the storm affects the water. But think about this. When Jesus said, "Peace, be still," everything just stopped. Imagine being on that boat thinking you were going to die. Jesus says, "Peace, be still." The sky clears up. The water is flat. The water is calm. The water is quiet. Now, Jesus didn't do some incantation or something. He didn't call upon some higher power. He could have, in most stories like this, there's, kind of like the Harry Potter moment, right? Like if you go, okay, Alakazam or whatever, right? And he didn't have a magic wand. He didn't have a Harry Potter moment, anything like that. He just said, "Peace, be still." He didn't pray to God. He didn't pray to the Father, say, "Father, please calm down this ocean for them." He got up and said, "Peace, be still." And this is what Jesus is saying. My power is infinite. In fact, I am power. I am all power. Jesus, Mark is kind of taking us through the life of Jesus, and there's almost a crescendo here of how powerful Jesus is, where, all along the disciples are like going, "Wow, he healed this person. That's cool," and oh, he's casting out demons. That's cool. And now at this point, they're like, "Wait a second, hold it." He just calmed the sea. He just spoke to the weather and it stopped. And the disciples were more afraid after Jesus calmed the storm than before he calmed the storm. And because what they saw was this mass, incredible power that Jesus has. He has it because he's God. And this is what Mark is saying. Jesus is God in the flesh. And he didn't have to pray. He didn't have to say some magic word. He didn't have to make a sacrifice. He didn't have to do anything of that sort. He just spoke it, and it happened. That's what Jesus can do to our storms. He can speak, and he can calm them. And you may say, "Well, why hasn't he calmed my storm?" And I want to get to that. But Jesus is the one that ultimately is going to calm all storms. Let me take you to my third point today, and that is his power is not controlled. And this is really, I think this is really the scary part. You are going to be in a storm no matter what. The pictures I have here is there's a there's a picture on my wall of a lighthouse. I love this picture. This is a lighthouse in France, and they took these pictures of this. Apparently, there was a storm, and the waves were just coming right over top of the lighthouse. But the lighthouse stands. The lighthouse has been there for centuries, and I love the picture on the right of the guy just kind of standing there, right? Why the storm is all around him. In the middle picture is a picture of Aslan. That's from the story of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, written by C.S. Lewis. And there's a line in that story where Lucy is going to meet Aslan, and they say she hears about Aslan, this great lion who represents Jesus in C.S. Lewis's story. And Lucy says this question. She says, "Is he safe?" And she's answered, "No, he's not safe. He's good, but he isn't safe." And when you look at the power of Jesus, what's so amazing about Jesus is that his power isn't controlled, right? He's not going to be manipulated. You're not going to say some, the witches and warlocks. What they do is they try to do, some incantation to control spirits so that spirits do things for them, and they go through rituals and they go through all those things. And sometimes people think we can do that with God, right? We could just kind of if I do the right things, if I say the right things, if I say just the right prayer, if I do it just the right way, God's going to do what I want. And I think we need to realize that God is never going to be manipulated. See, God's going to let you go through some storms. He is. And this is really what's going on here in this boat. The disciples come to him and they're like, "Don't you care that we're going to die?" And Jesus then rebukes the storm. But what does he say? He doesn't say, "Hey, listen, I really understand why you were afraid. This was a really bad storm and you guys didn't know." That's not what he says. He says, "Don't you guys have any faith? Where's your faith? Where did it go?" Jesus is saying to them, "Hey, you've seen me heal people. You've seen my love for you. You've seen where was your trust? You were going through a storm. Did you think I was going to let you die in that storm? I was never going to let you die in that storm. This is, you can trust me." So you might be in a storm right now, and I can tell you this, you can trust Jesus in the midst of your storm. He might rebuke it and it might all go away, or it might stay. But here's the thing, where's your faith? Right? Where's my faith? Do we trust in what Jesus has done for us? Do we trust in who he is? Or do we just assume that we're going to die? Because every single believer, every person of faith is going to have this moment where they're going to say to God, do you care that we're about to die, or that I'm about to die? Don't you care about me? Where are you? Every single person is going to have that moment. And God's response, the response of Jesus to us, is going to be, where's your faith? Have you seen? Have you looked back at all the times I've been faithful to you? Why don't you think I'll be faithful now? Can I be faithful through cancer? Can I be faithful through adversity? Can I be faithful through financial hardship? I can be faithful through all these things. See, because there's a bunch of little storms in our lives that Jesus will let us go through, but the big storm he has taken care of. And that takes me to my fourth point today. His power is costly. Let me go back. His power is costly. What's really great about this story, you always got to think of the Bible as hyperlinked together. Okay, every story relates to a story before it. So when Mark writes this, you are really reminded of another story in the Old Testament. You're reminded of the story of Noah. No, I'm sorry, not Noah, Jonah. You're reminded of the story of Jonah. Jonah, we know the story, right? He is told by God to go to Nineveh and preach. He refuses to do so. He goes out to sea, and a storm comes, and the exact same thing happens. He's in the stern of the boat. He's laying down. He's sleeping, and the sailors come to him and say, "Do you care that we're going to die?" Right? And Jonah says, he looks at the storm, and, we have the story that he was swallowed by a great fish. But When Jonah says to them, "Throw me overboard," he doesn't know he's going to be swallowed by a great fish. He looks at the storm and says, the only way that you're going to be saved is I have to die. That's what Jonah is saying. Now, of course, we know he's thrown into the storm and the fish swallows him and spits him up on land, and we know the rest of that story. Jesus compared himself to Jonah. Jonah was an imperfect prophet. He didn't want to listen to God. Even at the end of the book, the last page of the book of Jonah is Jonah complaining to God. That's the last statement. And God saying to him, why don't you care about these people? So Jonah's an imperfect prophet, but Jesus is the perfect Jonah. Jesus is the real Jonah, because at this moment, Jesus isn't going into the storm, but it's still the same thing. See, Jesus is going to let you go through these storms in your life. Some of them he's just going to rebuke. You're going to get sick and he's just going to heal you. But sometimes you're going to go through a storm and it's not just going to go away. It's just going to be there. And it's the smaller storms. And you say, well, the storm I'm in doesn't feel very small. And I get that. I do. But I'm talking about the big storm of death, the big storm of sin, the big storm of eternity. Jesus has already taken care of that storm. He has gone to the cross. You could say he's like Jonah saying, throw me into the water, throw me into the storm. Now, at that point, he didn't go into the storm, but he's going to go into the storm. He's going to go all the way to the cross. He says to us, just like Jonah said, for you to be saved, I'm going to have to die. And that's what he does. And so the big storm is taken care of, right? So no matter what I go through in this life, I got this promise that in the end, I'm going to live. In the end, all my storms are going to be calmed. That some of them are going to be calmed in this life, but ultimately at the end, throughout eternity, all my storms are going to be calmed because of what Jesus took place, what Jesus did. And remember, this story is a real story, right? There's details here that tell us that this is someone's memory. There are people there that could have said, I can tell you that this didn't happen, but they never came forward. They verified that it did happen. The disciples that were still alive and were around that time affirmed these things. They saw these things. And they affirmed that he went to the cross and he rose again. In a few weeks, we're going to be celebrating Easter. And what's going to come out in a lot of the TV shows and stuff, they're going to say, who is the real Jesus? And there's a lot of thought about that, right? Who is the real Jesus? And there's a tendency to think, well, all these stories were kind of made up later about Jesus, but the real Jesus was a lot different than this. But we know Mark's gospel goes back into like the 50s, like AD 50, somewhere around there, where these people were still alive. And so Mark shows us the real, raw Jesus. And this is what Jesus is saying in the midst of your storm. He may look like he's sleeping right now. And you may be saying to God, God, why are you sleeping? Don't you know that we are going to die? But he has already taken care of the biggest storms of your life. And this is what he says to you. Where's your faith? I already went to the cross for you. I've already healed you. I've already redeemed you. I've already set you free. Do you really think I'm going to let you perish in this storm? No, I'm going to get you through it. So here's my final thought today. Exercise the knowledge you have. It says, for the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. When I say exercise the knowledge that you have, is when you're in the midst of that storm, what you want to do is you want to look at that storm, right? And you want to say, okay, this is just, for me, I get really seasick. So I know if I was on that boat, I would be completely panicking. I would be sick. I would be just beside myself, right? My tendency would be to look at this storm, and it'd be so hard for me to see anything else. But you want Jesus asleep in your boat as you're in the storm, because here's what you want to do when you're in the midst of your storm and it just seems like the waves are coming over and everything is just overwhelming for you. You want to remember who this Jesus is. He is powerful and he loves you. See, let me go back to this one slide, and then I'm going to end here. Okay, so just stick with me if you can, just a few moments. But let me go back to this one slide here. And this is the storm, right? We are in a storm either way. And let me tell you what that means. Life is a storm, right? Life without Jesus is a storm. And life with Jesus is a storm, right? What I mean is this: you may have a great life right now, right? But eventually life is going to take you over. Eventually your body's going to break down. Eventually life is just going to come at you, and it's going to come at you. It's going to come at you. You may die happy. You may die bitter, but you're going to die, right? Nature is just going to take over. That's what nature is. Nature is just this storm that takes over your life. You may not see the storm right now, but it's just coming at you. It's amazing the things in nature that are just designed to kill us, and by the grace of God, we're alive, right? And it just comes at you. Here's the thing: with Jesus, you're in a storm as well, right? But the difference is, life doesn't love you, but Jesus does, right? And so when you're in the midst of the storm, if you're in the midst of the storm with Jesus, you can remember that no matter what Jesus allows in my life, he's allowing it through his love, right? And I can trust him that I don't understand all that's going on. I don't understand why everything is going on, but I can put my trust and faith in him. I can put my hope in him, because I know that even in the midst of my storm, he is working things out of his love for me. Sometimes we're in storms because there's sinful people around us do awful things to us. Sometimes we're in a storm just because of the circumstances of life. And I wish Jesus would just calm all my storms. Ultimately, that's what he's going to do. One day, 1,000 years from now, I will not even remember the storms that I went through here, because I only will remember the love and compassion and power that Jesus has. So when you're in the midst of your storm, focus on who he is, and focus on his love for you. Focus on what he has done for you. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Bless you. And I'm getting off a little bit late here, but I really appreciate you guys sticking on with me. And let me pray for you. Father, for everyone listening right now, I pray that you would just bless them today. I pray your presence would be with them. And I pray for a supernatural move of your Holy Spirit in their lives. And Lord, anyone that's in a storm right now, I pray that they would see the powerful Jesus who can get them through the storm. And we give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. And we meet in person every week at 10 a.m. here at First Assembly. So we would love to see you. Great things are happening at First Assembly, by the way. And we're going to be telling you about that within the next several weeks or months. We're really excited about some things going on here. Some new stuff is coming. So we hope you stick with us. God bless you. And we hope to see you next week.